Hello, this is Paki for L Rocks, and today I'm here with two of my super favorite artists, Anzi and Andre from Blind Guardian. Thanks so much for this interview.
Thanks for having us here.
So, as I was telling you before, with this album you literally made me cry. I was waiting for something wonderful because, of course, Blind Guardian never lets people down. But I did not really expect to start crying after 1 minute and 5 seconds. So it was really it's really an emotional album. It's really wonderful. So congratulations for that.
Thank you very much.
Amazing. And let's go straight to the album because I have a lot of questions about it. I'm really curious about this work. The first thing that came to my mind is that this album really can connect your past and your present, and so open your future basically.
I hope, yeah.
Because it started basically from 20 years ago, and you have both these old school Blind Guardian but also a lot of new element. You really stepped the game with progressive, for example, and you have a lot of modern small element going through all the album. So can you tell me a bit about what story you're going to say and why you wanted to start from that specific album?
Well, it was not intentional from the beginning. So we started songwriting actually, and we start at point zero. So we ourselves have no idea where we are going to end up in terms of, having accomplished 11 songs after 2 years and then seeing what to do. But after a while there was a certain attitude in the songs we have composed, and I felt, well, it might make sense to think about a concept. And all of a sudden this imaginations aspects came back into my life due to the best of thing we did and due to the Traveler's Guide Through Space and Time experience. And I just realized, I've never finished the story of And the Story Ends. And this leaves a gap open, which I probably could use for this particular album. And I mentioned this idea to Andre, and he said, yeah, go along and, just provide me with ideas. And then I started working on first concepts, what could have happened to the boy who stood at that mirror and was supposed to make the jump to another world. And I just felt, okay, let's think he did not dare to jump and stayed in his world and become an even more isolated person. And from this moment on, I kept on building up two different universes, both influenced and severely hurt by the decision the protagonist has made. And I created two universes which started in a plain fantasy way of style, and then changed into something more 1984 related, George Orwell. And this was underlined by the music, and all in a sudden I have had the idea to deliver this person back to the Red Mirror. He basically is on his quest for the Red Mirror to make that jump which he missed 20 years ago, and it's also a sort of quest for a holy grail, a personal holy grail, whatever.
Wow, great. Is there something autobiographical in this tale?
Well, I've been asked that for the second time now. No, I would not say so. It's more the passion and the sensation for imaginations in general, and for the idea of creating new universes. And of course, there are personal aspects in there, as in almost every Blind Guardian song, but this cannot be related to me, except for the part that I invented the boy, and he is certainly a part of me.
And I read that a couple of comments from you guys saying that when you start to work on a new album, it's really liberating for you guys, and generally you start from one point and you really don't know where you are going to end. But in this case, it's a concept, so it did, as you said, it didn't start as a concept album, so it wasn't just an idea that came later.
It has been an idea which was connected to the music, so from that point on, obviously everything was connected. But I tried to keep Andre, especially as a songwriter, free from the perspective of the story. I just mentioned little things here and there, and he got a, let's say, overall view, but he didn't know in which direction I would go. And since I have had two words or two universes to deal with, I've had the privilege to switch in between the songs because they show different aspects of Blind Guardian. As you said, there is that old school type, there is that classical type, there is that more futuristic type, and so I could even split due to the quality of the songs when I created my story. The most concerning point for me was the structuring of the album at the very end, because still there is a necessity to have a flow within the songs, and if that did not go along with the flow of the story, then I would have had a spoiler. Luckily it went out well.
And you said in the press kit that generally journalists get with the album, you said, and I quote, "This is a story between science fiction and fantasy. The two words described have changed dramatically for the worse since then. While there used to be several passages between the words, there is only one gate left now, the red mirror. It has to be found at any cost." So one thing that it comes to my mind is that, as always, Blind Guardian created this fantasy world, but this is also like maybe a way to describe the real world where we live in. It sounds like you are describing that as well, right?
There are adaptations from reality, but it is left to the listener and to the one who's going to read, because there will be a lot of liner notes with the album to determine which direction he is going to define the story himself or herself. I like the idea of telling a story. So this is something I learned from Tolkien, basically, who loves to tell stories. You know, many people say, well, this is so much Great War inspired because he has made this and that experience. Of course, this has had an influence on the story, but he keeps the story free from that. You know, it's The Hobbit, it's The Lord of the Rings. You know, and he's trying to tell that story, and he's fine with people interpreting and adapting things, but he's not fine with a certain transferring into real aspects. And I like that idea. This was something I've had in mind from the beginning, because I just read, you know, some of the biographical stuff about Tolkien. I also read a lot of stuff connected to C.S. Lewis, and the two guys, they had two different approaches in creating the story. But you know, the element of just having a story containing some truth in there, but you know, not delivering that directly to the listener and leave that to the listener, is probably the most important fact of the story.
And why there is just one gate, and why this gate is a mirror, and why it's red?
Well, red is so obvious. Red is just the greatest of all colors. You know, black would be the second one, but red is so amazing.
Because mirror is a really symbolic element. It has been used in any culture, so it carries so many symbolisms.
This is very obvious. You know, a mirror has that potential, and since a mirror reveals a different world whenever you look to it, I thought, yeah, that's obviously easy and a nice, easy plot. So this had to be the mirror, and we have had the mirror. It was not a red one, on imagination. So I like to have this link as well at that point. As said in the bio, there were many ports, and there's still many portals. But the red mirror is the only mirror, if you're able to open it, which will lead you to this world. All the other gates still available, they lead you somewhere, and you don't know where you end up. This will be part of the concept as well. It's not described particularly well in the songs, but with the liner notes people will get that.
Okay, we will discover that. So let's go to the musical part of this album, that is at the end the most important one. It's a really crowded album. This you don't have one choir, but you have three. You don't have one orchestra, you have two. So okay, why you did decide to choose so many people to collaborate with, and the orchestra has each one has 90 elements.
Yeah.
So a lot of people. Was it a challenge to work with so many people? How did you pick the right orchestra, the right choir?
To start that, it happened by accident.
This is interesting.
we stayed with the orchestra first, okay, because there are two different stories and they lead to different conclusions. When we talk about the orchestra, you're right, 90 people is a lot already, and that would have been enough for the album, but we were used to work with the orchestra from the Czech Republic, and they did a spectacular job on At the Edge of Time on this album, and they also did a great job on Wheel of Time and Sacred Words on At the Edge of Time. Now it's getting mixed up. Whatever. I mean, they did a great job, but when we were finished with the other songs, they didn't have any schedule time frame for us, you know, which would be suitable. So we were in need for another 90-piece orchestra. We found that in Budapest, and they did a job as good as the people in Prague. Okay. So this is the reason for two orchestras. Choirs, a little different.
Okay.
We have that emotional introduction in the Ninth Wave, where we really needed the huge choir.
Yeah.
For that, we were searching for a 200 people choir, actually. We couldn't find something like that, because our intention was to sound as impressive as Karl Orff did with his Carmina Burana choirs. By not having a 200 people orchestra, we were forced to ask many orchestras to take part in it. Choirs. Choirs, yeah. To take part in it. And this is how we ended up with 3 different choirs. We needed the size of so many people.
Wow, yeah, a lot of people.
Yeah.
And you play the guitar, you decided to play down tune. Why? To give a bit of more an aggressive riff, or?
Yes, and to have a more modern approach from the sound. I think I was searching for new elements, and that was an easy way for me to add something very different from the sound. We never used that before, and I always, in the last 2 albums, I think, or maybe since the opera, I always added some down-tuned parts, but only certain parts, like a chorus part or something in the solos. So I knew how it would sound, but if you write a song in a normal tuning and you add the down-tuned guitars later on, it's not the same than writing a song with a down-tuned guitar. So since I never did this, I wanted to try out what would come out if I use a 7th string. And I did this with Twilight of the Gods, and it came out really good. I was satisfied with this, and I thought, yeah, there's a chance for me to find more space for new experiments, to have new ideas. And the second try was Ninth Wave, and it's probably one of those features that really give this futuristic, brutal flair, which I like very much.
Mm-hmm. And I was thinking that you did a great job in the mixing and stuff, because when I started to listen to the first track that is so epic and with so many people singing and so many instruments, I was worried, okay, is this big orchestra is going to overtake the album, because the guitar is such a big element in Blind Guardian. But no, like the guitar is still there, it's really still a main character. And how did you balance these two aspects?
That's only possible because it's these songs were written for orchestra, so I could compose this space that the orchestra needs, And in other songs where you don't have orchestra, you can put more guitars, you can make the sound even more close with guitars and put more melodies. But there, we knew we wanted to work like this, so we left this space open, and in the mixing it really goes, it's a good fusion, like it goes hand in hand. The orchestra takes over in some parts, and then the guitar comes back, and this is kind of dynamic, which I like very much to play around with this.
And last question for us. I know that people are curious, so what do you guys think about the Hobbit movies? Satisfied?
I'm satisfied. 100%, yes. I liked The Lord of the Rings. I have a long tongue. I'm sorry. I liked The Lord of the Rings, but I really loved the first two versions of The Hobbit. You know, I at the beginning was a little concerned that it might be stretched too long, but it's not how it felt when I watched the movies. And I like the storytelling, the fairy tale approach on The Hobbit.
Yes, for me the same. I like Peter Jackson very much. He has an unbelievable vision for me, how he could hit so well some things that I had in mind before the movies were there, and he really brought it to the point. It's unbelievable. For me, this is masterpieces of movies, and there's not many movies that can compete with this. Maybe the old Star Wars movies are the same level, but for me this is really high class movie.
So we promote them. So thank you so much guys for your time, and thank you for watching, and be sure to check out their new album Beyond the Red Mirror, because it's wonderful. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.